a lot of the changes that we make during our adolescence. For instance, if they're influenced by phones or social media. It's not even necessarily just what the kids themselves access, but based on algorithms and what social media decides to present via their curated feed. Parents have to be okay with the idea that their kids might not be happy about the decision that they make or the boundary that they set. Hey, what's up everyone? This is Isaiah. By popular demand, we have Kitty back for his second video. Seems like he liked the camera so much that he's back for round 2. So today we're checking out a video that was actually on Fox News talking about a town that banned cell phones for its teenagers. Let's see what Fox News had to say about it, what prompted the town to make that kind of drastic change, and see how it's worked out for them.
A study shows 42% of children have a cell phone by the age...
Well, okay, let's look at these numbers real quick. By age 10, this is in the US, 42% of kids have cell phones. And then by age 14, 91% of them have cell phones. That is an insanely high number. About half the kids in the country who are 10 years old have cell phones. That's crazy. Well, let's see what they find out about that. Hi.
Of 10, going up to 90% by the age of 14, with many worrying that this will have negative long-term effects on our kids' socializing. But
okay, negative long-term effects on socializing, sure, that's part of it. As I hope they touch on further in this video, it's more than just harmful effects on socialization, but also mental health, attention, ability to delay gratification, able to connect with other people, views of yourself and your self-worth and your self-image that all get distorted based on having access to phones, social media, all of those things at a very plastic time in a child's development. And what I mean by plastic is that your brain is undergoing so much wiring and rewiring at this time that a lot of the things that happen during adolescence become hardwired into the structure of the brain during that time. And plastic just means that the brain is undergoing a lot of development and change at this time. And as we get older, we actually lose plasticity. A lot of the changes that we make during our adolescence, for instance, if they're influenced by phones or social media, after these kids have gone from age 10, age 13, 18, to about 26 when the brain reaches that kind of adult maturity.
Town in Ireland is taking matters into their own hands by taking the smartphones out of the children's hands, agreeing not to buy phones for their kids until they're older. And parents say the results are great. Joining us now is Justina Flynn. She lives there in the town of Greystones. It's in Ireland. It's about 15 minutes from Dublin. She's a psychologist and a mother of 3. Good morning to you.
Okay, so it looks like the parents all came together, saw the harmful effects of cell phones on their kids, and decided together not to buy cell phones for their kids. Really intrigued to see what could have banded the parents together in such a way that they felt like this kind of drastic action was necessary. So let's check it out.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for
here.
joining us. We're so glad. We all read the story and we just said, this is genius. What y'all are doing, people are talking about all over the world. What made you want to come to this decision in your town?
It was just the striking results of the rising anxiety, depression, and everything that we noticed, the bad and negative outcomes of having a mobile home, especially for the young kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So what she's talking about, anxiety and depression spike a lot of times in relation to someone's engagement on social media. And I talked about this in my other video talking about how Instagram can be lying to you. A lot of times we see filtered images, curated images. We see what influencers and other people want us to see on social media. And so a lot of times it looks like everyone else has the perfect life, but we know that we don't have a perfect life. And so we feel like there's something wrong with us. People are seeing what they would look like with filters, and that makes us even more dissatisfied with how we naturally look. And that leads to issues with body image, self-image, feelings of self-worth. And so that leads a lot to anxiety and depression.
How's it going? What are the parents saying now?
They are amazed. Like, the support that this town got is incredible. Like, it feels like the parents were waiting for that, waiting for somebody to take initiative and do something about it. Mm-hmm. So we don't feel like it's just on us, on the parents.
Okay, this is key. And I think American parents are waiting for that wake-up call as well. And I hope that all therapists and counselors are saying this to the parents that they work with who have teenage kids, that empowering them that, oh, all right, Kitty's done for today. Empowering them to say that, hey, you have that authority. You have that right to say, hey, you don't need a phone, or we're not getting you a phone right now, or we're getting you a phone that does not have internet access and it's just for calling certain people when necessary. And I've just seen so many parents who have fallen into that trap of feeling like they have to provide a phone for their kid, or that once they've provided it, they have lost all control over it. And so there needs to be a movement to empower parents to take back authority and be able to set boundaries around phone usage and just access to phones, and by extension social media and the wider world of all that a phone can connect you with in general.
Justine, I was reading an article that said there were a few suicides, 2 girls, I believe, that were involved in a bullying incident, and they committed suicide, and that really opened the eyes of the town.
I think that was a really shock, and I think it's happening everywhere. I think the access that the kids have to the internet, or internet having the access to our children, that we don't know what's going on there, that, you know, this tragic death as well that can be associated with that.
Right.
It's just so sad.
Right. This says...
Okay, so it sounds like this is what really spurred those parents on, recognizing, like she said, the access that social media and the internet has to kids through their phones. It's not even necessarily just what the kids themselves access, but based on algorithms and what social media decides to present via their curated feed. That can be an unknown and detrimental, as well as just the opportunities for cyberbullying that pick up when someone has access to a phone, access to social media through a phone. And it sounds like these suicides were what really spurred those parents on to take that choice for themselves.
In your town can't get a phone until secondary school. Is that middle school? Is that like 6th grade, 7th grade?
That's the middle school. That's
Okay.
the middle. And I hope it will go higher. I hope
Yeah.
it will go to 16.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm with her. I hope that what this town is doing gets replicated in other towns, and that that age goes up. 12 is already a decent cutoff, but hopefully, like, even as you talk about entering adolescence for a couple of years, going on to like 14, 15, or 16, hopefully that can be something that becomes more normative.
So from a psychological standpoint, I know you're a psychologist. What are these phones doing to our kids?
Basically, they're really messing up the brain of the young kids, because the brain is not developed. So it's a different outcome for adults and a different for kids. Basically, you know, their use of the phone is associated with anxiety, depression, obesity, sleeping disturbance, and many other health problems in adulthood.
Well, Justina,
I would also add on to it that adults are not immune to those concerns: depression, anxiety, obesity, sleep disturbance. But especially because the adolescent brain is still developing a lot of those patterns that they're learning right now, whether it's that instant response, just expecting things to happen instantly, like you press a button on your phone and something immediately happens, or that there's an immediate spike of a dopamine hit when you get likes or feedback on stuff that you post on social media and things like that, we begin to start valuing the immediate rewards so much more, or we just get used to everything having an immediate payoff, and that gets wired into our brain in adolescence. That becomes very hard to engage in things that may be initially difficult when we're adults. For instance, going to work. If you're used to every time you touch your phone something happens, or something, there's some reward from it, how are you going to go to work for 2 weeks, force yourself to go to work for 2 weeks for a paycheck at the end of 2 weeks? Or even talk about applying for a job or applying for an apartment that may not even feel like there's an immediate payoff, or there might not be a payoff because you might be declined or rejected for it.
Our viewers, they're all over the world. We asked them to send us their emails because we were talking about this topic earlier in the show. And this is from Veronica. She says, what took everybody so long? Social media that is available 24/7 is harmful to everyone, especially impressionable kids. Then Tony says, schools have no right to take a phone from a child. However, I think the non-use in class should be enforced.
How are you going to have non-use enforced without taking the phones away from the kids? I think it's a nice sentiment, But what we've seen is that social media especially is designed to be addictive. I've read before that their currency is in your attention. So they have every reason to try to maximize pulling your attention. And so if a kid, or heck, look at adults, if there's some kind of notification, the temptation to pull out your phone and look at it is overwhelming. And so that's why I think it's really important that this town figure out it has to start with the parents setting appropriate boundaries for their kids. And a lot of times parents coming together to talk about that and what that's gonna look like empowers them to act on something that maybe they might not do by themselves.
Our kids' phones for safety, but its use has been abused. And then Robbie says the smartphone peer pressure today is so great amongst middle school kids. Schools fix social issues with clothing comparisons by going to uniforms. Could communities do something similar with social media apps on phones? That's actually...
I don't know the research on school uniforms. I know the thinking behind it is that if everyone's wearing the same thing, then there's no comparison or anything like that. I don't know how much of that translates to phones. I don't know how much of that is evidence-based, so don't know about that part. But I do agree that in the end, it's probably helpful for kids not to be having access to phones and social media, especially as early on as the numbers seem to indicate.
A really good point. The uniforms are helpful so kids don't compare themselves to one another. And with the phones, social media, my gosh, I have a 7-year-old, so I haven't gotten to that point yet, but how old are your children and how are they dealing with this?
So my kids are 12, 10, and 7, and none of them have phones, and they're not happy about it. There's a huge pressure, but we know too much.
I think she makes a good point. Parents have to be okay with the idea that their kids might not be happy about the decision that they make or the boundary that they set. And honestly, for those who have had teenagers before, that's probably par for the course. And what I tell a lot of the parents that I work with is, if there are going to be arguments, and if you are going to have to put in concerted effort to make something stick, make sure it's something that really matters. And phone usage or access to a phone, if they're not happy that they feel like all of their friends have phones and they don't, that is something that's okay for all of the reasons that this psychologist is talking about right here.
To give them the phone. So like I feel very passionate and very strong about it, that because I want my kids to be healthy adults, I don't want them to give phones because their research is really clear.
All right, well, hats off to Greystones. Y'all are doing something wonderful. I wish all of our schools would agree to do this type of thing. Maybe that will happen in the future because of y'all. Thank you.
Okay, that's kind of a throwaway line. I don't know if she was just ad-libbing or whatever, but this anchor said, I hope our schools can choose to do this. This has to be a family level thing. Our schools are doing their best to enforce that and whatever, but again, like I talked about, if the parent is going to buy the kid a phone, allow them to bring it to school, the school has limited options to enforce already, and it wastes everyone's time and energy when the teacher takes away the phone and the parent has to come pick it up. That kind of boundary setting needs to start from the home. So I know probably a throwaway comment as this anchor is signing off, but absolutely it needs to start from much closer than just the school system. Okay, so some final thoughts on this. I totally agree, and I don't normally say that about Fox News, but I totally agree with the premise of what this town Greystones has come up with. I do believe it needs to be community-based with a lot of families, a lot of parents working together to say these are the expectations that we have for our kids. Let's set some boundaries. And when you have other parents that you know are backing you up and doing the same thing, that makes that peer pressure that she talked about a lot less concerning. And I don't think the dangers that she's talking about are overblown at all. We see it a lot, everyone kind of recognizes it. And again, it does take parents going to an uncomfortable place to be able to set those boundaries and enforce them. It's true that your kids are probably not going to be happy with being told that they can't have a phone yet. It's true that you might have some fights and arguments about that. Is keeping my kids from something that I know is going to hurt their health and their well-being, is that worth fighting for? And I'd argue that that answer is yes. Everyone, thank you so much for checking out this video. I really enjoy getting to dive into some of these current events and to be able to hear about a town that community-wide is implementing something like this. That's so exciting to hear, and I really hope that other communities, other groups of families start following suit to be able to provide the best possible opportunities for their kids' brains to develop into healthy adults. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video. Please like and subscribe. That helps our channel to grow and to continue creating great content like this. So thank you for checking out the video. See you next time.